So it's my pleasure now to welcome Lachlan Hunter, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister for Agriculture, Food and Parliament of West Australia. Some of you will know Lockie. He worked in the livestock exports for a few years. He comes from a multi-generational mixed farming family in Bruce Rock and was elected to the Parliament earlier this year. Lockie worked for 6 or 7 years in federal politics, not as a politician, but with politicians, policy development, and has got a pretty wide understanding of the livestock industry and agriculture generally. So, as Shadow Minister, he's got some views on this industry and a lot of others. So it's my pleasure to welcome Lachlan Hunter to the forum. Please give him a welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, and how great's Terry and Wright as the MC here today and someone who's contributed significantly to Western Australian agriculture, but also agriculture right across our great nation. So a round of applause for Terry, I think, because he's been a bloody good job. And it's good to see him still involved. Before I start, I would like to also acknowledge Galvo in the room up the back, who's standing down, I think constitutionally, we say Galvo, as the chair of ALIC. I've known Galvo for many years now in his different roles, originally a boy from the Territory, but also someone who knows his way around both sides of politics in Canberra and has done an amazing job representing this incredible industry in our nation. But also as a parochial Western Australian, I also think that Galvo's done a remarkable job in representing Western Australia's interests on the national stage. So round of applause to you, Galvo. Well done. And obviously he's ably backed by his very competent CEO, Mark Harvey-Sutton, who has a long history of agricultural advocacy on a national level. And Mark and I go way back from your NFF days, so it's good to see you doing a remarkable job in Canberra as well. And I think it's also apt that we also have a new chair in Dr. Chris Back, as a familiar face in Western Australia, a former vet, a former senator for Western Australia, chair of the RAC committee. He will do a fantastic job representing this industry on a national level. Well, it's great to be here today addressing you as WA's Shadow Minister for Agriculture and Food. As was introduced, I only got elected to the State Parliament only 8 months ago in March this year. And it's actually this very industry which drove me into putting my hand up and representing the great electorate of Central Wheatbelt in the State Parliament of Western Australia, because I joined the National Party and decided to get involved in politics when Julia Gillard shut down the live sheep trade in 2012. And I remember I was on my parents' wheat and sheep property in Bruce Rock, and I called Jeff Hutchison, who some will remember if they're from Western Australia, who was the mornings presenter on the ABC, because he had the Prime Minister Julia Gillard in the studio asking questions around why her government shut down a very legitimate trade, and obviously that was the cattle trade. Warren Truss was then the leader of the National Party in opposition in Canberra. And we also heard today from Andrew Robb, who had a friend in the live sheep trade. And I thought, as someone who grew up in regional Australia, how was it that a government could shut down a legitimate industry overnight, which would affect so many of our regional communities, and someone had to stand up and do something. I also then worked in Canberra for just under a decade for Australia's first ever female agriculture minister, and that was the National Senator Bridget McKenzie, where I was proud to be her live animal export advisor and see the changes that the industry were going through during that time. And Senator McKenzie and David Littleproud send their very best wishes, but obviously the federal parliament is sitting today and they couldn't be here today. But we did face our challenges in Canberra during the last term of government, and I think it's really important to note that, and going on the journey that we're on now with fighting a Labor government that seems to want to shut down viable and legitimate industries. And I do want to take you back to 2018, because I remember sitting in Senator Mackenzie's office when she was the Agriculture Minister. And now it is on the public record that our opposition leader federally, Susan Ley, who was a backbencher at the time, Sarah Henderson, the member for Corangamite, and Jason Wood, two Victorian lower house members of parliament, brought forward a private members' bill to shut down the live sheep trade. Liberal members of parliament bringing a bill before the parliament to shut down the very industry that the government was supportive of. And that was a trying time in Canberra. So I think that was our first hurdle. But under the Nationals, we will always support the live sheep trade in continuation. And we know from a federal level, the Nationals will always hold the portfolio of agriculture. And then we tie back into the Dunkley by-election in 2024. And we remember the Prime Minister at the time did a preference deal with the Animal Justice Party. And this is the proverbial that we hear from the Labor Party to say, well, they took it to an election time and time again. But the fact of the matter was that they did a preference deal with the Animal Justice Party to secure their success in that 2024 by-election. And I'll remind people that are here today, the Labor Party the Animal Justice Party got 3% of that primary vote, just over 2,000 first preference votes in that by-election. That has shut down a $1 billion trade that is so significant to the state of Western Australia. I think that it just speaks volumes and is deplorable. And then we saw when Senator Watt introduced his so-called independent panel, which paved the pathway to shut down the trade. There was panels, there was Zoom meetings which announced the shutdown of the trade, there was submissions. Over 13,000 people submitted submissions into that very process. And then we saw the disastrous act that came before the federal parliament on the 1st of July 2024, which put an end date on the trade. And then we saw the government announce after the federal election $139.7 million to support Western Australian industry transition out of the sheep trade. And we know, and I hope that the Transition Advocate is here today and is attending over the next 2 days. But that money, they spent $2.3 million for a New York global media company to tell our own state in Western Australia how they were going to shut down the trade. $2.3 million. And we heard the Minister for Agriculture in the state of Western Australia get up here today to say that they were supportive of the live sheep trade. Yet the state government in Western Australia is getting $1 million to their own state department to basically facilitate or administrate one of the phases of the $139.7 million. There has not been one single dollar from this state Labor government to support the transition out of the live sheep trade. So I am an opposition MP, so we do highlight the government's failures, but for those that are not from Western Australia, welcome to Crown. But next door, in a place called Birdswood, in between here and the stadium where it was going to be, this government's building a racetrack. So $217 million of taxpayer funds in Western Australia is going to a racetrack in Perth, but a legitimate industry which has been shut down by ideology gets $139.7 million. You do the maths on that. So 12.5 million sheep in WA sheep numbers that we saw before the end of the trade. 9.4 million today. That just speaks volumes about where our regional communities are at. And I represent an electorate in the state parliament the size of South Korea. 28 local governments, many of whom have mixed farming properties, or many of whom just rely on the sheep trade to continue. And I can tell you, as I traverse my amazing electorate and the great state of Western Australia, many people are selling their last flock of sheep and pulling out their fences because they're going total cropping because they have no confidence in this government. And I do want to give you a local example within my electorate of Central Wheatbelt. There's a little town which many of you will be familiar with called Tamman. And we saw the abattoir in Tamman being shut down overnight because of that business decision, which had a direct effect on their local throughput and and the like of sheep through their abattoir. That was 60 jobs lost over a 2-week period for a small community of Tammin. And just 2 weeks ago, we had the local school bus run shut down within that community. So for politicians from Canberra and Perth to be telling us that this industry can transition, our regional communities can survive, the reality is that the facts tell a very, very different story. We know, and David Littleproud has said this before, that our activists will never be happy with anything that we do. We had the SCAS system which this industry can be so proud of, and I can see the amazing work that LiveCorp have done over many years to ensure that our animal welfare standards are being exported to the world. So we say to those activists, once this industry stops and XCAS is thrown out the door, you're actually putting the animal welfare responsibilities which other countries around this nation or around the world don't have any animal welfare standards. And we know that this government in Western Australia, the Cook Labor government, can stand up to Canberra. And it was great to hear our friend from the mining industry just before. So we say, well, the live export industry for sheep in Western Australia is done and dusted. We as a state government don't agree with Canberra. We heard the minister today get up here and say that they don't agree with their federal counterparts. Well, when a state Labor government and a federal Labor government can work together and combine on a single issue to stop a decision coming out of Canberra, they have done it before. And we saw that before the election with the mining industry, a little thing called our nature positive laws. Nature positive laws was stopped because Premier Roger Cook called up then Prime Minister Albanese and said, take it off the cards before the election in May. And they succeeded. So if it was good enough for the mining industry, why wasn't it good enough for the agricultural industry in Western Australia? The second largest industry in the state of Western Australia. The Cook Labor government don't even have a parliamentary secretary for agriculture in this state. And at the last state election, they didn't even have a policy on the second largest industry in Western Australia. And the election results for those who are not from this great state spoke for themselves. The National Party doubled its seats in the state parliament, increasing its regional representation. Federally, at the last election, the National Party retained every single one of its seats because regional Western Australia and regional Australia have had enough of city-centric Labor governments. And we also saw, and I do want to note in the room today, the team from the Grower Group Alliance who are doing a fantastic job of advocating for many of our grower groups across the state of Western Australia, and it's disappointing that the state government has cut their funding, something that we will continue to raise over the next 3 years to ensure that they're supporting our livestock sector in Western Australia. Sorry, I don't mean to sound doomy and gloomy, but these are the realities that we face at the moment. So this is a government that obviously hasn't stopped at the live sheep trade. And I see people here from the livestock transport industry, and it gives me great concern that once the government has finished with the live sheep trade, that they'll be coming next for our transport sector as well as our live cattle trade. But there is hope. And we saw that hope at the last federal election with the amazing work of the Keep the Sheep campaign. As someone that's been in and around politics for almost a decade now, the amount of activism that we saw not only in our regional communities but across the streets of Perth and St George's Terrace, over 3,000 people coming out and supporting that envoy to tell Western Australians and to tell the nation what a disastrous decision that has been. It got tens of thousands of petition signs, so well done to the industry for ensuring that was a success, and don't dampen that it wasn't a success in political terms, because we've certainly raised the flag and the issues right across the state of Western Australia. As David Littleproud has said, and as Basil Zemplis, as Leader of the Opposition, who will be giving his remarks tomorrow, and Shane Love, the Leader of the WA Nationals, our side of politics unequivocally backs the live sheep trade, the live cattle trade, the live animal export industry. And as David Littleproud said, if he has the opportunity to become the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for Agriculture, he will overturn this horrid decision of the Labor government, and in the first sitting of the Parliament will reintroduce an act to ensure, to divulge the current act and ensure that we can actually get this trade back on track. Regional WA and Australia rely on your success. We rely on ensuring that our towns are thriving, because we know when we have good mixed farming agriculture in the state of Western Australia and the nation, that means we have strong regional communities. We are here fighting for you, and we want to ensure that your success is paramount. So thank you so much. Enjoy the next couple of days and appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Lachlan, for that address, and it's gratifying to have a politician who's solidly behind the trade and understands it in a broad sense. So thank you very much.